April 11th. This is for the regularly scheduled board meeting of Wednesday, April 13th. And as we turn the meeting over to our trustees to review the agenda and the fiscal items included within the agenda, I will quickly ask if anybody has received public comment or if we have any members on the call for public comment. I have not received any at this time.
Mr. Pascual, have you received any?
None here.
None here either.
Thank you. With that, Associate Superintendent, are we ready to turn it over to our trustees?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So Trustee Zhang, I am still in my car. I'll be at my desk in 5 minutes, so I can't hear you.
I'm muted. Okay. So then shall we just move to the items? I think the first one is 10.1, approve student study trips. And this is a routine students trip, right? Provided by the student fund. Is anything else need to be added for the public?
No, these are generally paid for by school-based fundraisers through the students or through local funds at the school site.
Okay. And each school would plan their own trips, because this one is, I see mostly is by Irvington High School. And I would expect that other high school would submit their trips at different times.
Yes, each high school is responsible for submitting their trips based on their student activities or clubs or programs.
Okay, all right. Let's go to 10.2. Receive the Circle of Independent Learning annual report and a presentation. So, so can anyone give us a little background on this report? Is this provided annually and only by the independent COIL school? Because it's separate, right, compared with the rest of our schools.
That is correct. It is generally prepared annually, and COIL does operate under its own board. And the unique aspect of COIL is that, unlike many charter schools within a district, it has FUTA educators, union members, as part of their staff. But other than that, it remains a separate program from Fremont Unified. And this is the annual report of their work.
So my question is, by looking at the presentation, I see the balance, the reserve is about $240,000. So they are not following our general rule of a 3% reserve, etc.
I would defer. I defer to somebody from our business team, but in general, I don't believe that they need to follow our same restrictions because they have their independent oversight and guidance. Associate Superintendent Pfeiffer, Director Akala, or Director Pascual, any information there?
This is Robbie. That is true. They don't follow our reserve requirement.
Okay. So what about if they have a deficit, and who is going to help them out?
So on the deficit, suppose what should happen is that during the interim reporting, they should make the necessary changes in their budget if we are projecting or they are projecting a deficit spending or a negative ending fund balance. Just like any other charter schools, the review of the program, including the review of their financials, is part of the renewal process if Fremont Unified School District is going to allow them to continue operating as a charter school.
Okay, I see. Thank you. So let's see. Let's go to 10.3. Woodlock Johnson Cognitive Testing System for School Psychologists. And this is a $74,356. And this is a renew of the program we have used in the past.
Yes. So the Woodcock-Johnson assessment is a tool that is used by our school psychologists as part of what we call our psychoeducation evaluation protocols. And that is when a student is evaluated for special education. There's an evaluation that's done by a credentialed teacher, generally a resource teacher. And then there is also an evaluation done by a school psychologist. And depending on other areas of assessed need, there's a multidisciplinary team that comes together to put together a report which outlines the findings. And the Woodcock-Johnson test is one of the tests that's frequently used. And so this allows us to continue using that test, which we do have to pay for. And when you talk about these type of assessments, there are oftentimes professional development that is needed for staff as they recalibrate to learn how to score the newer versions of the tests. So that's what this item is encompassing.
Mm-hmm. And so we only renew as a needed basis. I don't remember last year have seen this kind of item. So we don't have to renew every year.
Yeah, generally there's two things that would prompt an expenditure in this area. One is if we actually need more tests themselves, because you generally you are only going to use them one time per student. And the other is if there's a new version that comes out and we need to be updated to the new version. Those would be generally the two times when we'd see expenditures for an evaluation system or assessment like this.
Okay. Let's see. Let's move to 10.4. Approve increase in 2.0 means 2 psychologist, a full-time employee. And the dollar amount is $232,000. So, and this one, I think, can we tie it up with another one of 10.5, approve 2 full-time employee increase of educational related mental health services. Are they all together for the same purpose of help?
They're not all the same exact purpose, and they're not all funded the same exact fashion. So the first one is based on the fact that we've been identified in Fremont Unified as being disproportionate within aspects of our special education population and programs. And part of our response to that is to put together a comprehensive coordinated early intervening services plan. And with that, we have funding that's set aside. So the first item, 10.4, comes in response to that. 10.5 comes as both a response to current needs and needs that have developed from the pandemic. And these providers help our schools approach and deal with the mental health crisis that they're seeing. And so this provides more FTE for that purpose when we talk about 10.5.
Okay, so then 10.5, where is the budget come from? I mean, the dollar amount, is that coming from a COVID-related government fund?
I'll ask our business services team to reply on the funding side of that.
Yeah, Robbie, I don't if you want to add to this. We were just having a discussion this afternoon about CSACE funding. It's funding that comes into the district that has to do with disproportionality. And so it should be coming from those dollars as it's noted under budget source, comprehensive coordinated early intervening services funds. So we do have funds for CSACE programming currently, and then we have another pot of funds that we recently received that should be paying for the psychologists.
Right. Then what about 10.5? And which category does which category of fund would pay for this service? Still from a how do you pronounce it? CCEIS fund? The 10.5?
So here I do see a budget source. It's titled mental health.
Mm-hmm.
I'll have to look into what specific resource this is. I know about CSACE, but I would have to look a little bit deeper into this mental health budget source.
Mm-hmm.
And
This
the
is
mental health, oh, go ahead, Robbie, go ahead.
so. This is another source of funding for special ed, and it is for the mental health services. It is a separate grant coming from the state.
Okay.
So the grant value increased, meaning it seems today we have 2 full-time and 1 part-time. This educationally related mental health services providers, right? And then we are adding 2 more to it. So does this mean that the grant amount increased from last year, or are we supplementing somehow from our side? Meaning, are all four full-time and 1 part-time, will they all be covered by this grant that you mentioned, Robbie?
I'm trying to look at that grant right now. Because my recollection in the past is that they have not spent that money every year. But I want to confirm that.
Okay. You're talking about 10.5 from the mental health?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And what we can do is we can provide that as part of a
Right.
Q&A response to the board if you can follow up with that, Robbie.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It looks like we do have an increased need for mental health. And I also read from articles that, this year and the California school district is very short with psychologists, counselors, based on this COVID consequence. Okay, so then let's move to consent calendar of finance. 11.1, approve of payroll warranties. Those are the standard 50 million. There's nothing special about this order. And let's move to 11.2, approve purchase order. So this one is 72 million and 156,000. I see that, but usually, there's many POs attached to this report. Is there anything? I look at it. The big chunk of the money comes from the what's called purchase of the facility. It's $58 million. So I don't know, except the staff to tell me, is there anything special we need to pay attention? It's really hard to know.
So staff from the business side, is there anything there that jumps out to you? I think as Trustee Zhang has pointed out, we see this number increase substantively when it comes to the board when we have a higher number in Fund 21, which is our building fund. And as Trustee Zhang pointed out, we do see a significant number there compared to the last few meetings. Is there anything else in this agenda item that you think should be called out for review, discussion, or attention?
Not that I know of. I just know, the building projects are continuing with Kelly as the lead there, but nothing out of the ordinary.
Okay.
Same thing here.
Okay. So I guess it's really hard to predict because there is like 12 orders of the facility, and then it's $58 million. So I'm looking at each order is averagely, what is the math? So there's a time which is some project which is like finishing up, or I guess it's just random, right?
I mean, I think another factor that could come to play is we have our purchasing deadline as of April 14th,
Uh-huh.
where we've informed, or the purchasing department has informed all of the sites that they need to have their requisitions for purchases in by April 14th. So that could probably also see why you see this jump in purchase orders. So everyone's putting in their requisitions now. So that could be also another factor why you see a spike at this moment.
So one suggestion from my side would be, to me, year-to-date numbers give me an idea of are we on track, because from month to month or week to week, the numbers could jump around. But year-to-date can tell us what if there's anything different happening this year compared to last year. Is that something that we can see?
Trustee Prasad, it would be something that we can consider how we bring forward. In the agenda itself, we're reporting the purchase orders for a specific window of time.
Mhm.
So we'd have to work with staff to see how we may want to consider doing that. I have not seen that in other districts that I've worked in, but it doesn't mean that it would be outside the realm of possibilities. But that too might change year over year, especially around Fund 21, depending on where we are with the size and scope of a project. But we can certainly talk with our business team and see what options they might consider and they might want to look at for that.
Yeah, I mean, so not needed for this board meeting, but let's consider how to tell if something is extraordinary here or not.
There is a report that can be run from the financial management system that would provide you the name of the vendor, the dollar amount of the payment, and the service they're being provided. And that would be that would have a lot more information than the current report that shows a PO number without a dollar amount, without a vendor name, and without the type of service that we're paying for. So if the board is interested in something like that, that is easily available in our accounts payable, and it would match this information, but it would provide a lot more reference. So you can see if you're paying for Centerville, Thornton, are you paying for the architect? Are you paying for the general contractor? It would provide a lot more information and, of course, more transparency.
I think we need to think about, what kind of information we want, and then what is it useful to help us to, in regarding to make future decisions. I don't want to just generate a numerous report. I want to see if what's some data would really help us to see the big picture, right? So I think we need to think about this. But right now, when I look at it, usually when I look at those reports or the numbers, it's really hard for me to understand like what's behind it, unless you would tell me something different or extraordinary, or I would actually have no idea. So let's think about it in the future, how to make use of this item. Okay. So 11.3, denial of claims. So these are the routines we usually deny and leave it to the insurance company.
No budget impact, right?
Right?
That's correct. We would generally deny the claims and defer them to our liability insurance company for review.
Okay. So then let's move to 11.4, quarterly investment report. So I just realized, we are giving the report for 1 year before. So these are the last year's report. Is that how this report is being generated?
We get these reports from the Treasury Office, and ultimately, whenever we get these reports, we try to submit it to the board for these quarterly reports. So we get it. We get it. There's like some time lag there, so that's why you see it. It's kind of older. But
Mhm.
then what we try to do is try to report to you all in regards to all of the funds that are in the Alameda County Treasurer. And then just kind of see what the market value is at the time of the report that's given to us in a summary form.
Mhm. Okay. I mean, they're kind of they're kind of stable, right? Between the returns, the annual 1.1, 0.9 something,
Mhm.
and but I look at how they allocate the fund. You know, mostly they allocate on the treasury and some of the banks. And I wish they could do a better job in allocate to some other companies and generate more than 1%. You know, but still good. You know, we get like over 3.5 million, right? Am
Mhm.
I right on the number? A
The,
year. Yeah.
the Treasury is not allowed to invest in risky because it's taxpayers' money and it's because it's district funding. There are very clear criteria of where this money can be invested. If they make a wrong investment in some risky enterprise, then you lose all this money, and we don't have the luxury to play the stock market. And so there's very specific guidelines established by Ed Code that precludes the treasurer from investing money from school districts, but in very secure investment portfolios.
Right, I understand. Yeah, I wish they could put some small portion, right, to some blue chip company, etc.
Mhm.
But anyway,
Yeah. So one question now with the second paragraph in the background section says that this report shall be submitted within 30 days following the end of the quarter, and we are sitting 6 months beyond the end of that quarter. So, so would we call ourselves delinquent then?
When did you receive the report, James? Or Robbie?
Um,
When was the report received by our office?
I think it was delayed in regards to it being submitted because of the vacancy of this position. So I think it coincides when the director role was vacant, and then I believe the report was submitted around that November, December time. So because of the vacancy, there was no one to provide the report. So as soon as I came aboard, I was alerted of this report that must be provided to the board. So I went ahead and submitted that for this April board meeting.
How about the quarter ending December 31st? That should also be due now then, right? And in the March 31st, we still have a couple more weeks.
I'll double check. I haven't received anything as of lately that I know of, but I'll double check and see what's going on there.
Okay, thanks.
Mhm.
and then the second quarter we should also have it, right? Okay.
Mhm.
So let's move on to 11.5. Authorize staff to approve the addendum to the auditing service agreement with, how do you pronounce this name? Bailey?
Ide
LL?
Bailey, ma'am.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, um, $11,000 to 100. This is just for additional service for the audit for the what CARE Act funds.
That includes the CARES Act funds and also the property of Lila Bringhurst Elementary School.
Okay, it's for both of
Yeah,
the
more of the Lila Bringhurst property.
okay. Lila Hurst. So, at what kind of condition we would require them to give us additional report? Is it whenever we finish a big project?
No, ma'am, because the Lila Bringhurst property was a donated property. And so there was a lot of inquiry regarding that property like the cost of the infrastructure, and including the fair market value of the land.
I see. Okay. All right. Thank you. Um, let's see. Okay. 11.6. Authorize staff to amend the agreement with LPA Architects for interim housing design services for Kennedy High School, and this is a $80,000, $525. And I read this is only for the design service of adding let me see, adding of 12 of the portable classroom, adding 12 standard temporary classroom to the project. It's for the design. That brings me a question. So during the process of construction, so we do need to build some temporary classrooms.
They're not going to be permanent classrooms. They're portable classrooms that we would be renting for the period of time that we're modernizing Kennedy.
Uh-huh.
And the fee that we're charged by the architect is because to install portables, you still have to take the plans, architectural plans, to the Division of State Architect to get the design approved, where they're going to be, how they're going to be connected, where the power is going to come from, and so on and so forth. Then they get installed. And since we're heading into constructing Kennedy High School, there needs to be portable so that you can move the students from the wing that you're working in on to the portables. Then when those wings are done, you move the students back, and then you do the next wing, and you do the next wing, because this is not work that can be done just during the summer. And this is the work that needs to be done cannot be done while students are in the classroom. So that's the need for the interim housing, and interim housing usually is portables, because at the end of the project, then the portables go away.
Right. So we have to rent those portables, right?
We have to what? Rent them,
Rent.
lease them.
Or
Yes.
lease, yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I was just looking at it. It's like, what to design this, right? It's a portable. Okay.
It's not the portable itself is is all of the portables, where they're going to be located at the site. So it's a set of plans. And these go, you go to the Division of State Architect and you submit it over the counter. So you have an appointment, versus if we were actually building something from scratch, it would take months. But because these are already built, all they're looking at is the site work, where the connections are going to be to the sewer, the electrical, the access to the internet, and all of those things are delineated in these plans. And then these plans, once approved, then you can move forward with the installation of those portables for the interim housing at Kennedy.
Okay. And so another question is the standard is 12 by 60, 24 by 40. So that's 960 square foot. What is our standard classroom size?
That is the standard.
Oh, that's pretty small. All right. So then I have a question of the future item, and which is talking about the kindergarten or full time, and that is the size is over 1,000 square footage. That's a different item. All right. So okay, I don't have any questions on this one.
So can we go back to 11.6?
11.6.
So
Yep.
there's no specific budget impact, but we signing this so JPA, right, for NPP. What is the implication of that? Is this for facilities related purchases, or what is this about?
Nancy, you're muted.
I'm sorry. The reason why we want to be part of this JPA is because they're pre-bid contracts that we can piggyback off of. So for example, if we're in need of the canopies, and that's one of the reasons why we're trying to establish this membership, we have either portable canopies or permanent canopies, correct? And so this particular JPA has already negotiated, has already established rates on how much these canopies can be purchased for, can be installed. So it's a savings in time where we don't go through the formal bid process because they've already gone through it. And by us having this membership, then we can piggyback off of multiple list of services that they provide and multiple list of materials and equipment and things that they provide that will help us expedite the deliverable of materials, products that we need for our school. In this particular case, we were looking at this for the canopies or the portable covers for the school sites that we've had so many requests from the public.
Now, do these, well, canopies are maybe the permanent canopies. So do they require DSA approval as well?
Yes, they do.
Now, does this also mean that whatever we buy through this has already gone through DSA approval, or will that be separate anyway?
No, you purchase the materials, but you still have to take their pre-approved. So in some cases, they're already pre-approved by DSA.
Mhm.
And so what you do is you still have to have an architect that will take that design that's been pre-approved by DSA, then plots it onto the school site where we're going to put them,
Mhm.
and then turns it over the counter and not through the lengthy process, and says, okay, so these are, you already pre-approved these particular canopies. The poles are, this thick, the height is this high, this is how long they go into the earth when they're installed, and so on and so forth. So DSA has already looked at all of that, how it's made, and so then we take that and we put it on the plans, and then we submit them to DSA. The next step after this membership is to bring back a resolution to the board that indicates that we're going to use a piggyback for whatever it is that we're going to purchase. So this step is just to create the membership with that group. So then we can use their leverage of being able to negotiate larger contracts for the benefit of the district.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Okay. Shall we move to the next one?
Yeah.
12.1, approve certified personnel action. And those are the routine, right? And approve classified personnel action 12.2. And then 12.3, approve athlete coaches. So those are pretty much the regular items. Shall we skip to 12.4, tentative agreement between FUSD and the FATA. Yeah, actually this one, what is this about? Oh, this is about summer school and extended day programs.
Yes, and Trustee Zing, I don't think that's actually on the final version of the agenda.
Yeah.
So it might not be finalized, but yes, each year we work with FUTA on an MOU for our extended school year programs.
Okay, so this one is not on agenda, so we will look at it in the future, right? Very soon.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. So I'm looking at the printout items. So let's see. Okay, so then where shall we go?
15.1.
15.1. Review of District 2020-21 Audit Report.
So anything to preview from that report here?
I'll ask our business services team if there's any information they'd want to preview or call out related to the audit. It is worth noting we're a little behind schedule, and we normally have this audit coming forward. But I think as we've shared previously, there were a number of developments that were unique to this year that required a little bit longer time.
Robbie, is there anything that you need to point out for as it pertains to the audit report?
So on this particular agenda item, a manager from the I Bailey auditing firm will be presenting or will be reviewing with you the audit report. So things to highlight, we did receive an unmodified opinion, which is, I know the verbiage is doesn't sound positive, but it is a positive audit report. Or and but however, we did have an audit finding, and this is in regards to um, cash with our fiscal agent, which is the for capital facilities, and this is the cash that is with a fiscal agent or in a bank, U.S. bank, in the amount of $4.4 million. So that would be adjusted in our books as an audit adjustment. The other one is uh, in Fund 40, our capital facilities fund. We did not accrue a an invoice for in the amount of $328,000. And because even though it's 328, it looks immaterial for Fremont Unified School District. However, in Fund 40, we don't have that much expenditures, but unlike Fund 21. So it was considered material for that specific fund. And the other one is our fixed asset report.
Robbie, so if we did not approve that, so what is the impact? What does the finding say?
So the findings state that we should have accrued or charged that $328,000 in fiscal year 2021. And what we did is we charged it in the current year, 21-22. And the other one is our fixed asset report, where mostly because of the Lila Bringhurst property. There's a few things that was also mentioned in the board letter that it is not an audit finding, but it is noted to be, they said it's immaterial, but they have to note it for the board. And that then those are one is the GASB 84 implementation, which is the fiduciary account. This is the money that they are sitting in ASB that it should have been recorded in 2021, and we will be recording it in 21-22. The other one is the LCFF. They said that there should have been additional revenue of $229,000, but that is considered immaterial, so they did not put it as a finding. There was another bill for $26,000 that should have been recorded in 2021 last year, but was recorded in this year. There is also the implementation of gas. I forgot what is the GASB. Oh, GASB 31 or GASB 72. And this is for Fund 51. When I was closing the books, and this is in the amount of $361,000, I posted this. However, our County Office of Education recommended to us that I should reverse that entry. And so, because it was a recommendation coming from Alameda County Office of Ed, I did reverse that entry. However, our auditor is saying that you should have posted it. So in the future, I will be posting it and not agree with the recommendation of Alameda County Office of Ed.
So well, I mean, I suppose this is where you all have the expertise to make that decision, right? When to accept or not.
Yes.
But the question is just like for this item, you said Alameda County recommended, so we took that action. For all the other findings, are you in your presentation, will you be covering as to why such findings won't happen next time?
Um, because it is not a finding, it is only a board notification. I will be posting it and I will be not following ACUE's recommendation. The reason why ACUE recommended not to post it is because none of the district in Alameda County was posting or implementing GASB 31 and 72.
Hmm.
And we're the only district who was implementing it. And so that's the reason why, and it's only for Fund 51 that I particularly requested it. The other funds, they did not.
Yeah, that is fine, but the first three or four items that you mentioned as part of findings that should have posted in the previous school year, and if they posted this year. So when there are several of these, the question would be, is our process? I mean, did it match our process? And the auditor is saying we should modify our process, or
Um,
if I've posted in the. I mean, do we agree with the finding, and we are going to modify our process?
yes, it's actually we do have a response on the audit findings that we will improve our internal control. But there are sometimes we don't have any control where the vendor does not send us the invoice on time. Because usually in the month of June, I usually meet with my staff and I said that we need to call our the departments and ask them, especially for construction purposes, to send us an invoice as of June 30th. But
Sure.
some of the vendors does not do that, and we could
Sure.
not project.
Well, that's a good explanation, right? It says, here's why this finding happened, and I mean, we can try to push our vendors, but we cannot guarantee that they will submit all the invoices on time.
That is true, sir.
So as long as we have a good explanation for each of the findings and we don't need to change our process, then we are good.
Yeah, but we still need to do our due diligence,
Of course.
uh, probably more often than just doing it twice or three times. Probably we need to do it 4 or 5 times.
So that's your recommendation. That's a change that you will try to implement.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thanks. Okay, so let's move on.
And I
Yeah.
think that is uh, the bulk of the notation or and finding that our auditors is requesting.
Sounds good.
Okay, so let's move to 15.2. Approved staff recommended textbook for pre-calculus. And this one is mainly due to auto print for the textbook. Okay, so
Yeah, so this is a textbook adoption, just over $350,000 for pre-calculus is a college prep math course offered at all 5 of our comprehensive high schools. And you'll see in the agenda item the process they went through to review publishers. There were 3 publishers. They had a group of 4 pre-calculus teachers from across the district that helped contribute to this. And I believe they reviewed 7 textbooks initially. And this is the recommendation of the group.
thank you. I like that when we buy a textbook, we go through this thorough process to find the best textbook. I think that's really in line with how we provide best books and how we teach them in the most effective ways. Those are very important. Okay, let's see. The 15.3 we skip is to choose a committee member for facility advisory committee, and that has no impact. And then let's move to 15.4, A to G completion improvement grant program. What is this one?
So this is our A through G grant. We thought we were going to be receiving a lot more. That number has come down from the state. And I believe we have just over $700,000 to support access and around $260,000 for learning loss mitigation. And under the Ed code related to these, there are certain things that they can be used for. This is coming to the board for discussion and information. And based on the discussion and information the discussion and the direction that we receive, we'll be bringing it back to the board at a future meeting for action and approval.
Now, there's no dollar amount here. It's called a grant. So is there a dollar amount?
Yeah, the dollar amounts are what I was just reviewing, the over $700,000 related to A through G access, and then just over $260,000 for A through G learning loss mitigation. And our business team might have more information on how these numbers have fluctuated based on our projections, because this was something that the state was talking about, I think, long before they finalized in terms of the actual numbers. I don't know if Nancy, James, or Robbie has other information on that item.
No.
Okay, so I understand. Oh, okay, Robert, please.
No, I did not have any additions.
Okay. Okay, so actually those are going to ask for us to see how to utilize those funds. That's a great thing, because so for the next meeting. 15.5, gifted and talented education program identification. So those are not physically impact, but it could be. So shall we skip that one and move to 15.6, universal transitional kindergarten. This general fund expanded the learning opportunity program for what is its recommended action for approval of a universal transitional kindergarten plan, and authorize staff to expand the enrollment ages for transitional kindergarten over the next 4 years and add additional staffing. So can Superintendent give us a little bit more?
Yeah, so as we've talked about in other meetings, the state regulations are going to change the eligibility age for transitional kindergarten. And as a part of that work, we need to make some adjustments locally. And so we're bringing it forward for board review, discussion, and approval. And what will be happening over the course of the next few years, as you'll see in the presentation that's associated with this item, is the age of eligibility for transitional kindergarten is going to continue to roll back a little bit each year. And that will hopefully allow more students to access transitional kindergarten. And Director Cert will be at the meeting to help review this item and talk about the comprehensive changes.
Okay. The question is, there's a dollar amount. So when do we need to expense this dollar amount?
So the dollar amount would be associated with next year's budget, and our business services team can confirm or add more information there. And that's related to the increased staffing. So as we add more students in transitional kindergarten, we will need more teachers for those classes. And as the way the legislation is currently written, there's also a requirement that for every 20 students, there's 2 adults. And so as most districts are doing at this time, they're looking at a teacher being the certificated adult in the classroom and a paraeducator, a classified support staff member, being the second adult. So each class that we have will require those 2 adults to maintain the staffing ratio mandated by the state.
Mhm.
When we're going to have the transitional kindergarten, universal transitional kindergarten? Is that this
Well,
coming fall or next year?
we already have transitional kindergarten in many schools in Fremont Unified. The expansion will start in the fall of 2022, and it will continue to expand over the next few years.
Okay, this is based on the new decreased age requirement, right? So we can allow more students to enroll in the transitional kindergarten. And so
Yes.
this number is based on the forecast, right? How many students we're going to have. I see. Okay. Let's see, what else? Am I looking at the right number? 15.7. Okay, mine is only provide information, seek direction to install a cricket field. And I see that we actually have a extensive recommendation from FAC of several projects, right? So
that agenda item has been revised since the agenda item that you're reviewing. When we publish the agenda, it is review of facilities related projects and provide staff direction on next steps. And as you mentioned, as you'll recall, staff brought forward some facility needs in the February 9th meeting. The trustees asked that we take that forward to the Facility Advisory Committee for review and for their feedback. And the Facilities Advisory Committee met on March 2nd. So we're bringing their feedback back to the board. The projects that are reviewed are roofing projects, the track and field at Tack Stadium, parking lot at Hirsch Elementary, the baseball backstop at Irvington High School, shade structures for our high schools that we've talked about, and also the cricket field at Hopkins Junior High. And the agenda item includes information on how the FAC reviewed the items, prioritized the items, and there's a letter from the FAC. And this is an opportunity for the board to discuss this, to receive the feedback from the FAC, and give staff further direction on next steps. The recommendation from staff is to seek formal bids and RFPs where required so that we can get more context and real numbers behind some of these items for the board's consideration.
okay.
Now, can someone send us a link to the FAC meeting minutes and our recording?
They actually have sent to us. Is that right? Is that, I think so. I read it somewhere.
There's a letter associated with the agenda item, but as part of our Q&A docs, I can make sure that the information is forwarded. I'll grab the link from our website where I think the video might be available already. It's usually loaded up the next day.
Sounds good.
I think the only thing for me is I want to look at their recommendation is a 6 project, and the budget source is from this reimbursement of Fund 51.
They actually, the FAC does not recommend approving or not approving any of the projects. But they stated that if the board does decide to move forward with any of those projects, the way they ranked them is listed 1 through 6.
Okay. Okay, so the question I have is with, I think include the shade, right? Permanent shade a project. So I just want to bring to the staff's attention why we're building some of the schools, Kennedy and Centerville, and there's another school, Hawkins. And are we including the shade, permanent shade structure there? If not, can we add something there? Because it's needed anyway.
I don't have the information in front of me at the moment on where our design plans are for Kennedy related to shade coverage. I don't know if our associate superintendent happens to know off the top of her head if there's shade structure designs at the Hopkins, Thornton, and Centerville projects or not. That would be tough information to pull off the top of your head from architect drawings.
There is the facilities master plan that was developed does indicate at the school site where these shade structures would go. For example, Vallejo Mill has been in the process of getting a permanent shade structure, and that was included in the Group 1 projects to be handled during that process. So it would be a matter of pulling the facilities master plan that would indicate where the shade structures were originally earmarked to be installed.
Mhm.
And that information, I'm sure, can be sent to you. We would just need to ask the director of facilities to get that information to the board as to where these shade structures were originally placed when the facilities master plan was developed.
Okay, so the facility master plan was it developed in 2014, or am I confused with the long-term range masterpiece or something?
The initial facilities master plan was developed in 2007, I
Okay.
believe, in the process of trying to get it ready for when the bond passed in 2014.
Mhm.
Maybe not, I'm sorry, 7 years before, 7 years ago it was when it was prepared. Then the board has authorized the update of the facilities master plan, but 7 years ago, the board authorized and had a facilities master plan developed, and that's the facilities master plan that currently shows those shade structures.
Okay.
So
Okay.
we're currently updating that facilities master plan, but at least the original one did show these shade structures included in those plans.
Right. So that was included, and then after so many years, we don't have any shades until recently we provide temporary shades.
Correct.
My question is while we're building at least the three facilities, at least starting to plan, like Kennedy, Centerville is already in progress, and Hopkins. So we should evaluate those shade, even though permanent. So at least, let's say after the project is finished, we don't want to wait a minute, we forgot this, then we go back, right? So we kind of try to see whether it's necessary so we can, at least there is ways to reduce the cost. That's just my thought. Because we are going to add permanent shade anyway, and some of the facility, school campus, we already have temporary shades. So I want to just to point it out to the staff, and don't forget about this. Have you considered about this? And can you include in the plan so at least we can save some money? And you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, Trustee Zhang. I think in terms of the projects that are already underway, we could look and see where we are with those things. But any adjustments, I believe, to what is planned, if there's not already a design feature including shade shelters or structures, then we'd have to alter the plans, and that may be something that would need to come to the board for approval. Staff couldn't unilaterally just make that decision to change the plans and add those things. So we can look at what's included in the current plans for Kennedy and see where we land with those things. But I certainly understand what you're saying, which is, I believe, to identify those needs in the project planning as soon as possible to be as cost efficient as we possibly can be.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so what else? Where are we? Okay, so now that's a plans 15.7. Okay, what else? Okay. The 15.9 is to conduct public hearing to consider submittal of a waiver request of surplus property. This is a procedure, right? So of Williamson?
I believe
Oh, no,
this is for
Marshall.
the Marshall property.
Mhm.
And so this is carrying forward from the last agenda item from the last meeting where we would need to have this waiver as part of our process for that.
Right. It's just a procedure. Okay, let's move to, I think we are over time. Let's move to 15.10. Authorize staff to increase the budget for the Riggs Wrangler Early Learning Center modernization project in amount of 537,800. So this one is, I don't know what, there is another, yeah, this is another increase. So
So on the latest agenda, the number is 648,200.
oh,
But anyway, so the topic is still the same, so we can.
right.
Yeah, so this is an additional expense for the RICS project. I believe the 648,000 is to deal with additional inspection services, hazardous waste management, electrical supply requirements, and I'm trying to remember what the other ones were. I think there are some areas related to play service and landscape that need to be modified, and also some work that was not originally included in the project scope. And I believe that is totaling, those collective parts are totaling the 648,000. Associate Superintendent Pfeiffer, is there other information on that that may be helpful or points of discussion?
Yes, this increase in the budget for that project is not related to the general contractor anymore. The work that was done by the work that needed to be done by the general contractor will be done by the end of this month, and the cost associated with the general contractor is done. What this is for is all of the things that were not included in the scope of work for the general contractor. It does include the dishwashers, the refrigerators, and all of, remember that this is a special education early learning center. And so these are children that need to have not only that there needs to be a lot of sanitation for the students. So this includes the purchase of those items. This includes the payment of certain vendors that completed work earlier in December that have not been paid for the work that was completed. It also includes any of the, there's several of the playground equipment is on these rubber mats, permanent rubber, and this permanent rubber no longer passes the test when you drop something or a student falls. It's supposed to give in a certain way so that the student's not injured. Well, several of that rubber is no longer safe to have children play on it. So it needs to be removed and report. So on the detail link, you'll see that there's several of these of these playground areas that this will need to be done. And that's mostly where the money's coming. It's a very expensive proposition to remove it and then reinstall. So I think this is going to get us very close to being done with this project. But then again, there might be some items. There's 2 items from the city of Fremont that we're addressing. The retaining wall, not the retaining wall, but there was a wall that needed to be installed, and also the trash enclosure that needs to be covered. So all of these little miscellaneous things that were still lingering have now been identified and brought forward, hopefully to conclude this project.
Mm-hmm. So I remember we have approved this garbage, what's called a station containment in the past. Enclosure, right? We have approved the budget for that. And also during the last few meetings, we have approved the what soundproof walls from the school towards the neighbor. Is that right? So I hope I don't see any more bills from this project. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, we all want this to be done, right?
Yeah, actually, I was looking at the budget from FAC. They provide something, and I was want to add up all the money, towards this project. I don't know. I mean, it's like $20 million. I mean, I'm curious. I want to add them up.
So one question, I see the table has only 3 adjustments listed, but the description has more than that. Right? So is there something incomplete? If you look at the last paragraph of the just above current status, there's an amount of 500,708 approved in October of 2021. I don't see that in the table. And then there are a couple of smaller amounts before that.
I don't know if our business services team is able to respond to that. If not, Trustee Prasad will certainly review the background on the agenda item and put that in the Q&A.
Sounds good. Okay, so let's go on. We are 10 minutes over.
Okay, all right. Let's hurry up. Okay, this is just a presentation of Measure E bond program in Group 1 Elementary School Development Review. So let's skip that. There's no budgeted consequence. And then 12.12, 15.
Well, so before we move on, is there anything extraordinary in that report from a dollar a budget management perspective that would
I would have to defer to our business team to see if there's anything there on the Group 1 presentation that would be out of alignment with where we might expect that conversation to be with the fiscal side.
Superintendent Kamick, isn't this the item that will not be moving forward after all?
It may be that it doesn't move forward. I haven't had a chance to finalize any of that, so that very well may be the case.
Yes, it's an item that we were initially, staff is looking for direction on the design and what's going to be the end results of the work that's going to be done on those sites. We do have some preliminary reports from DSA that are going to require that we do improvements to our ADA, which are Americans with Disability Act, and that's going to have an impact. So initially, we wanted to bring this item to the board for the purposes of giving an update and being able to move forward with the design. And there has been some questions about how is that going to impact the initial budget. So we're collecting that information for you, and there might be additional feedback that needs to be provided as we get closer to the board meeting.
Sounds good.
I believe you may be muted, Ms. Zhang.
That's okay. Let's
There you go. There you go.
So it's going to be presented in the coming week or in the next board meeting for this item. Postponed till next board meeting.
It may need to be delayed till the next board meeting.
Okay. Okay, let's move on. Oops. What's the next item?
15.12. So this is for Thornton. This is just the next phase of architect work.
my understanding is that there is some additional work that needs to be done based on I believe DSA feedback. I'm not quite sure, but there is a need for us to pay for additional architectural fees.
Okay. Well, I suppose we need to work with our legislators that if DSA comes back with so many new requirements, there should be separate funding for that.
I agree.
Okay, not much to be discussed here then, right? It's a requirement, so we go with it. And the last one is 15.13. So these are change orders. Anything extraordinary here to report?
They don't exceed the contracted amount.
Okay.
They're within the contract.
Okay.
Okay.
That's the last one here. Okay. Anything else, Trustee Tang, from your side?
No, I'm fine. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Then we can close at 6:16.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay,
All right.
thanks. Bye now.
Thanks. See
Good
you.
night.
Good night.